Hello and welcome to Policing TV and the next edition in the series that we are producing on police and crime panels in England and Wales. My name is Paul Downing. I'm a member of a police and crime panel in England and Wales, and last edition I introduced the role of police and crime panels generally. Today I'm delighted to have with me the chair of our National Association, John Gili-Ross. And John, I'd like you to introduce yourself, and just as an opener, how did you come to be a member of a police and crime panel in the first place?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Paul, first of all, thanks for the invitation to talk about the National Association and how it fits into the policing world and all things related to that. How did I get involved? Well, I've had a long-standing interest in what the policing do, as well as the fire and rescue for that matter, but we're here to talk about policing today. That goes back from the days of the neighbourhood action panels, and it was always, although the neighbourhood action panels were put in place by the government, it was always the policing element that drew the crowds in, so to speak. And I was responsible at one time for all of the neighbourhood action panels across Colchester, where I live. So quite a it led me into thinking about the policing side and how it functioned. I'm a parish councillor as well, and they're always sort of let's just say involved with the policing side. So it moved on from there really. Then when the with the 2011 Act that brought in the commissioners. I was asked at the time, in fact, whether I'd put my name forward for a commissioner's role, and I thought that's a stretch too far, really, in terms of what I wanted to do. But I knew about the panels being set up in order to challenge and what I call challenge and support. Some people would say challenge and scrutinise what the commissioner does, and I thought, then that's more of an interest to me. I've got a background in sort of having to challenge what's put in front of me, as well as scrutinise, the activities, but at the same time supporting things if they're done the right way. And that's what I did. Was I applied as the first one of the two first independent co-opted members onto the Essex panel, and I've been a panel member ever since. Okay. And at the right opportunity.
Sorry, John, but we're going to explore Essex's role and Essex and similar counties' role in relation to fire in a future edition. But you then obviously have become a member of the National Association. Your role is chair of that National Association. Just tell us a little bit about that, its functions.
Yeah. Well, back in 2017, so the panels have been in place for a while. The panels have been meeting up fairly regularly as a result of workshops held by the local government association. And the panel members were saying the same sort of thing, which is who's looking out for our interests? How can we ensure best practice in what we're doing? Who's helping us out in that particular way? And it was decided at that time, well, maybe it's time we had an association of all the police and crime panels in England and Wales. And that's exactly what happened. So the members got together, decided upon what they wanted to do. And once it was agreed that we wanted to have an association, it was a case of forming a constitution, putting it to an AGM, the first AGM that we had, and from that we selected 10 members of individual panels to be on what's called an executive committee. I was then voted in as the chair of that. Back in 2018, and it's been the same way ever since. So really, the National Association is there. It's to support panels, and it was formed for panels by panels. It's self-funding, which is important, which means if you want something doing, an exec member or a member of the panels out there has to do the work. We get no financial funding from anywhere else.
And the links the association has, can you just explain about that? Links with the
Yeah,
other policing governing bodies.
yeah. Um, I think it's important to remember that there's enough people doing lobbying, as its constant term is being used, of various organisations, including the government in various forms, whether it's Home Office or otherwise. Uh, and the association, the National Association of Police and Crime Panels, it's not there to lobby. There's plenty of others that do that. But what we are there to do is to feed back to those areas that count the on the ground activities that are going on in terms of concerns, issues, things we're uncomfortable about, and look at it across all of the 40 out of the 41 panels that are in membership. Right, as I say, in England and Wales. So the relationships we have is with the Home Office itself, and also the APCC. And it's important that we do that because, of course, that we panels are partners of the policing side, but from a governance and a scrutiny perspective, we form a different link. Very important link, but a slightly different link. So our role in those relationships is to say, this is what's happening. Can you give us any information as to how we can improve it? Or more importantly, this is what's going on and this is how we are improving things for the panels.
John, thanks for that. I mean, John, in some respects, these additions will be helpful for both existing and new members of police, crime and fire panels as we move forward. Do you just want to explain some of the activity that we have undertaken as a national association, the conference maybe, and some of the research we've done?
Yeah. Some of the research that we have done, well, actually, let's get them to consultation responses themselves. We believe it's important, really, that whoever has set out the consultations, which is generally the government through the Home Office, they get an up-to-date and a broad view of responses from different panels. Individual panels can always submit a response, and that's fine. But sometimes it's very easy to concentrate on individual panel areas, whereas the association picks out the elements that cut right the way across the panels.
The common
How we
themes.
do that, right?
The common themes.
Yeah, the common themes. But how we do that, of course, is through our exec members. The exec members, which there's 10, as I've already said, they are operating within different panels, so they bring that sort of learning and experiences from different panels together to help shape the overall response that goes into, say, the Home Office. That's quite key to, if you like, give a view that there's a wider issue or thought process that's going on rather than an individual one. With regard to learning, it's a different area. Panels operate differently. All the panels operate slightly differently, and quite rightly they should do, because the policing areas are different. They've got their own nuances, and they've got their own way of doing things. Let's leave it down to that. So it's important, really, that that we recognise that, each one of those panels may have different ways of approaching things, but do they actually know which is the best way of approaching it? And that's where the shared learning that comes across from the National Association that we provide, it just gives them a different perspective, which they can either accept or reject, because it may not work in their cases, or it could be something that they never even thought about.
Yeah,
So
and indeed,
it's key.
I think we've got some recent examples, haven't we, where we've looked at the size of our respective OPCCs, the offices of the Police and Crime Commissioner. I think we've also looked at funding how fair that is or isn't across the country. And we'd be very interested, would we not, in putting a view forward around the funding formula for policing, because we
Yeah,
understand how it impacts locally.
yeah, and timing is everything on those on every response really. But you're picking up particularly on the funding side of things is that that's all likely to modify. Well, it has already changes pretty well each year. Now, who's ideally positioned to respond to those type of things is more the APCC through their commissioners, because the commissioners have got a better feel for how um, let's just say budget constraints are going to affect the policing side of things, in terms of the numbers, what their capabilities, the projects that can fund. Whereas the National Association, excuse me, yeah, the National Association itself would take the role of saying the feeling from the ground upwards, yeah, from the panels towards the commissioner is, you've got a problem here. We understand the problem here. You know, how you're tackling it with the Home Office directly, whether that's through the APCC or direct response, because of their position within the APCC. As a national association, what we're saying is, yes, there are some panels that have got issues with the funding formula as is, but others don't seem to have that. So what we're trying to say is, there seems to be an imbalance. So our position on this is that imbalance is giving certain panels an issue and a problem, and are you taking into account the views presented by the commissioners themselves through the APCC, rather than saying the funding formula is wrong, which would be saying alongside other areas, and in certain cases it won't be wrong for them. So it's one of those difficult calls. Funding formulas much more difficult. Other areas are very easy.
And John, as we move forward in this ever-changing world in the governing landscape, we know that in 2017, some police and crime commissioners took over their local fire authorities. As I say, we'll speak about that in the future. We know that there will be mayoral elections on a regional basis, and we wait to see how that impacts on the governance of policing. So I think I'll wrap things up there and invite you to come back and speak to us on your personal experience of how your police and crime panel took over the responsibilities of the fire authority, and then we'll move forward with further editions where I hope to interview colleagues in Wales and their specific interests, and cover other areas of police and crime panel work that we hope will be informative and educational for anyone A, involved in policing, B, interested in joining a police and crime panel near them. John, for the time being, thank you very much indeed for your time.
You're welcome, Paul.